So are you going fast or deep? This is about how to choose the right imaging approach based on time, intent, and sky conditions. My name is Doug, and this is Astro AF. So not every object requires long integration. The time involved in an astrophotography project depends on a range of factors: target distance, size, brightness, your Bortle scale, local sky conditions. You also need to consider your mount's tracking and guiding capabilities and the optical speed of your imaging system. So these variables influence not only how long you need to capture data, but also how you might configure your optical terrain, such as adding a reducer to widen your field of view and accelerate your F ratio. That's only part of the story, though. In many cases, your ability to go deep may simply be limited to your schedule, weather, or travel constraints. So much of this knowledge comes not from tutorials or specs, but from the direct experience. You learn how your gear behaves as a system under your skies and when it's worth chasing depth versus maximizing speed. So that's exactly what we'll explore here. And we'll start with, what does going fast actually mean? In astrophotography, fast refers to your imaging system's focal ratio, or F ratio. This is calculated by dividing the focal length of your telescope by the diameter of its aperture. So the result is a dimensionless number like f2.8 or f7. That tells you how quickly your system collects light. A lower F ratio means a faster system. Because the light is more concentrated on the sensor, it gathers more of signal basically in the same amount of time. So like for an F4 setup, we'll gather the same signal 4 times faster than an F8 setup. So this image that I'm putting up on screen here is of my HyperAF system. It's a DIY f1.9 imaging system, which replaces the secondary mirror on my Celestron Edge HD8. By removing the secondary and replacing with a HyperAF image train, I effectively reduce my focal length to about 388 millimeters. The result is a wide field of view with exceptionally high light gathering capability. Check out my video on the fastest imaging rig ever built. I'll put a link for that up here. So fast systems typically provide wide fields of view and are well suited for short exposure times. These setups are ideal for a limited time session, such as a weekend trip or traveling to a dark site, or you might be at a star party where you only have 1 or 2 nights to gather as much data as possible. The goal of this configuration is to maximize your signal acquisition per minute of exposure. So fast imaging is also a good fit for mosaics, wide field surveys, or capturing bright broadband targets like galaxies and star clusters. So going fast doesn't mean cutting corners or anything like that. It means knowing how to extract the best possible result from the time and conditions available to you in a field of view that meets your compositional intent. However, sometimes the goal isn't to collect data quickly. The goal may be to reveal the delicate complexity hidden in the dimmest parts of a target. So going deep is a deliberate approach that prioritizes patience, layering, and refinement over time. While low F ratios help maximize signal acquisition, resolving fine detail often depends more on focal length and image scale. Deep integrations not only improve signal to noise, but also unlock subtle structures, tonal gradients, and greater compositional control that short wide field sessions may miss. So what does going deep actually mean? Going deep in astrophotography means committing to a long integration time to push your signal to noise ratio as far as possible. This often involves using higher focal ratios, typically f6 or above, longer focal lengths that provide greater resolution. Deep imaging sessions are commonly spread over multiple nights, allowing for stacked data that reveals subtle structures and faint background features. In this image that I'll put up now, this is my Celestron Edge HD8 in 1422 millimeter focal length configuration with a 0.7x reducer. When set up in this configuration, the scope is running at f7, probably my favorite configuration in fact. What it sacrifices in the speed of the f1.9 configuration, it gains in detail, guiding stability, focus precision, and deep detail of distant dim objects. So this approach excels when targeting low surface brightness objects or complex detail for outer shells of planetary nebula, faint dust in galaxies, or extended emission regions in nebula. These subjects benefit from accumulated signal and compositional consistency and refined calibration practices. So subtle gradients and structure transitions often require high dynamic range and careful processing, both of which improve dramatically with longer integrations. So without sufficient depth, these details may remain hidden beneath the noise floor, never fully realized in the final image. So going deep isn't about one type of gear or another kind of image. It's about patience, stability, and intent. It's a deliberate choice to prioritize detail, depth, and tonal nuance over quick capture and broad coverage. Regardless of whether you're going fast or deep, calibration is the foundation that makes clean, accurate data possible. So understanding how often to capture different types of calibration frames and how they apply across a single or multi-night session is essential to every image strategy. So the calibration consideration, calibration is a critical step no matter your imaging approach, fast or deep. The quality of your final image depends on how well you've addressed the inherent noise and imperfections in your system. The only calibration frame that truly must be taken during each imaging session is flats. These are highly sensitive to changes in filter, focus, and rotation, and must be recaptured whenever your optical configuration changes. All other calibration frames, darks, bias, and dark flats, can be reused from a master library, provided they match your camera settings, such as temperature, gain, binning, your exposure length. These master frames can remain valid for months at a time. A common misconception is that multi-night imaging is harder to calibrate. In reality, with good calibration, discipline, and an organized master library, stitching together data from multiple nights is just as straightforward as processing a single session. If you want to get serious about your calibration strategy, whether you're optimizing for speed or building up deep integrations, check out an astrophotographer's field guide to calibration frames. It's my new book. It's built from the ground up to support workflows like the ones featured here on Astro AF that I'm always talking about, and it's a quick reference for calibration frame essentials. So here, for example, is a reference table that I'd like to show you. It provides you with a high-level understanding of calibration frame types and how they are created and their purpose. So if we take a look at this, we've got the calibration types, which are darks, bias flats, and dark flats, and whether or not they should be covered while you're taking them. So that's, cover on or cover off. In the case of darks, for instance, you want to have the cover on, bias on. For flats, you have the cover off because you want light to come in, and dark flats are darks, so you want the cover on those. For exposure lengths for darks, you want to match the lights. And for the bias, you want to short as possible. And for flats, you want 1 to 4 seconds. Typically, that's a really good amount of exposure time to make sure that you are filling up the wells on your sensor appropriately to get good, smooth flats. And then you want to make sure that you match your flats with your dark flats. So for temperature, you pretty much want to match the lights all the way across. Dark flat says to match the flats, and the flats are going to match the lights. So anyway, everything basically comes down to matching the lights. For gain, you want to match the lights again, same situation, and banning is the same as well. And then just some notes here. So for darks, it captures thermal noise, and it can be reused as a library. And for biases, it captures read noise and can be reused as a library. For flats, it captures system-specific artifacts like dust and things like that might have gotten on your optical train. And you will not be using a library for flats. And for dark flats, you can use these instead of biases. And these capture thermal signal and can be reused as a library. So I've also made a Venn diagram here that basically achieves the same goal as that table does in just a different visualization. I won't go through it in as depth, but I'll put it up here and you can certainly take a screenshot of that and use it. I've got it up on my website, and it's also available on my community tab. So if you're looking around for it, you can find it in those places. When to choose each type of approach here. So when you might go fast, You're imaging a large target that demands a wide field of view. Some objects, like the North American Nebula, Rosette, Andromeda Galaxy, or the full moon, don't fit in a narrow field. In these cases, you have to go wide, which naturally leads to faster optics and shorter focal lengths, and oftentimes could even lead into using a mosaic. So for fast systems are a natural fit when you're aiming for broad compositions and efficient data capture. So fast systems like F2 to F4 gather light efficiently, making them ideal for capturing large swaths of the sky in less time. They're great for surveys, Milky Way fields, and targets that benefit a broad frame. You're imaging bright targets that respond well to short exposures. Many wide field subjects like emission nebula and major galaxies are relatively bright and structured, meaning even short subs can pull out compelling detail at fast F ratios. So if you're running a simple, lightweight mobile rig, no guiding, fast exposures, minimal gear, this type of rig is perfect for quick setup and teardown, skipping the complexity of guiding and simply shooting short exposures with just a tracker and a camera. This approach minimizes gear while maximizing flexibility, especially when you're traveling or dodging clouds. Just get in and out, and maybe you're at a dark site for just 1 or 2 nights. But in any case, with limited time under quality skies, going fast allows you to maximize your data set and walk away with the complete image. Instead of spreading thin across multiple nights, you can focus your effort and return with a finished result even from a single session. So skies might be changing or conditions are marginal. So when conditions aren't perfect, faster setups and shorter exposures let you quickly adapt, whether you're working in between clouds, dealing with poor seeing, or working around moonlight. You can walk away with a solid image when the night isn't ideal. So you might go deep when you're aiming for narrower, zoomed-in field of view that highlights structure and detail within a specific region of a target. This typically calls for a long focal length and slower F ratio system, which increases magnification and resolution at the expense of speed. You want to capture subtle, intricate features such as faint wisps of nebula, shock fronts, or fine galactic dust lanes that only emerge with higher signal to noise from long integrations. You're not limited to a single night of data, whether you're working from a permanent setup, imaging from home, or have a repeatable framing across sessions. Stacking data over multiple nights allows you to push much deeper into your object. You're deliberately averaging sky conditions across sessions. By integrating under varying transparency and seeing, you gain flexibility in scheduling and can build toward a result that exceeds what's possible in any single night alone. You're targeting dim, diffuse subjects like integrated flux nebula, dark nebula, or supernova remnants that demand hours or even tens of hours to reveal properly. So some real-world examples. So in fast integration, here's a 9-panel mosaic of the Cygnus loop, which is the Veil Nebula complex. And this was only 8.5 hours of subframe integration using my Hyper AF system at f1.9. So the Cygnus Loop Veil Nebula Complex is a gigantic supernova remnant in the constellation of Cygnus. The arcs of the loop are known collectively as the Veil Nebula. The Cygnus Loop is located 1,470 light years from Earth. About this image, it's a 9-panel mosaic, unguided, 28 by 120 second subframes per panel, with a total integration of 8 hours and 38 minutes. My acquisition gear was my Celestron Edge HD8 in Hyper AF configuration, which is f1.9 at 388 millimeters. I had the ASI 533 MC Pro, and I was using the Optical astronomy filters HA03 dual narrowband. And I'm running the Astroasis Oasis Focuser and Skywatcher USA HEQ5 Pro. And then for software, I captured this in Nina and I processed it in PixInsight. So for an example of deep integration, this image is Messier 51, discovered by Charles Messier in 1773. Its striking spiral structure was later revealed by Lord Rosse in 1845, marking the first galaxy identified as having a spiral form. M51's interaction with its companion galaxy has made it a key object of study in galactic dynamics. So its common name is the Whirlpool Galaxy, and its type is a grand design spiral galaxy, and its apparent magnitude is 8.4. It's got an angular size of 11.2 by 6.9 arc minutes. Its approximate distance from Earth is 31 million light years, and that companion galaxy that's next to it there is NGC 5195. A little bit about the image. Total integration is 43 hours and 10 minutes. This was taken at native focal length of 2332 millimeters at bin 2. I had 104 luminance by 300 seconds. And then I had 53 each of RGB at 300 seconds. And then I had 30 S2 at 900, 28 HA at 900, and 2703 at 900 seconds. So the equipment used in this image is my Celestron Edge HT8, my Player One Astronomy Artemis M Pro, Optilong Astronomy Filter LRGB, and my SV Boni Filter SHO kit, the Astro Oasis Focuser and Filter Wheel, and the Skywatcher USA HEQ5 Pro. And in this, my software, I captured in Nina and I processed in PixInsight. So how signal to noise changes over time. So signal in an image increases linearly with exposure time. So double the exposure and you double the signal collected from your target. But noise behaves differently. While some types of noise, like thermal and read noise, may accumulate, random noise from the sky background and your electronics tends to average out the more you expose and stack. This is where the inverse square relationship comes into play. The math behind it is as you capture more total exposure time, your signal increases linearly and each subframe adds more photons from your target, but the noise decreases more slowly. In fact, the improvement in signal to noise ratio follows an inverse square relationship with respect to noise. And the math behind this is simple. Signal to noise improves proportionally to the square root of total exposure time. So if you increase your total integration time by 4 times, your SNR only improves by 2 times. To double your SNR, you need to capture 4 times as much data. This diminishing return is important in practice. For example, going from 1 hour to 4 hours doubles your SNR, but going from 4 hours to 8 hours only gives you a 41% gain. The first few hours make a big difference. Each extra hour helps, but not as dramatically as the first. That's why deep imaging takes patience. Every additional hour makes the image cleaner, but with diminishing returns, especially if your skies aren't ideal. Persistence pays dividends in this case. So diminishing returns and knowing when to stop. While signal to noise ratio improves and the more data, the rate of improvement slows over time because SNR increases with the square root of the total exposure. Doubling your integration time doesn't double your quality. It gives you only a modest boost. Eventually, you'll hit a point of diminishing returns where the effort to gather more frames yields only subtle improvements. There's no universal rule for when to stop. SNR estimation tools can give you a general sense of progress, but they shouldn't make the final decision for you. The best practice is to monitor your own data. Create trial integrations along the way. Inspect the results and let your eye and your goals be the guide. Trust your judgment. You'll know when you're happy with your own data. So this chart here is illustrating the square root relationship between integration time and signal to noise ratio. So the shaded region, which starts around 20 hours, represents where diminishing returns begin. This is just an illustrative example and does not represent your own data conditions. This chart is purely intended as a data scenario example to help explain diminishing returns. All right, so final thoughts. Every imaging session is a balance between opportunity and intention. If you're curious about what I mean by intention, then check out my post on astrophotography with intent. Whether you're chasing photons under fleeting skies or building a masterpiece over many nights, the approach you choose should reflect your goals, your conditions, and what excites you about the target. There's no one size fits all. Sometimes it's about capturing something meaningful in a single night. Other times it's about digging deeper and watching an image take shape over weeks. Both are valid, rewarding, and worth celebrating. So trust your judgment, adapt when needed, and most of all, enjoy the process. All right, so thanks so much for stopping by. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch my video, and I hope it's helped you out in some way. And if you have any questions, of course, let me know down in the comments or over on my Discord. Discord link is in the description. I want to invite you to check out a new book of mine, which is an astrophotographer's field guide to calibration frames. It's available in my shop. There's a link here showing below. And anyway, if you would like to see what's in that, there's a preview available over in my shop. Today we talked about going faster deep in imaging, and I hope that that helped break out some ideas for you, and anyway, give you some ideas on how you might approach your own imaging sessions and what you're trying to get out of them. And again, I've got some related videos like my my intent for imaging and things like that. So I suggest you go have a look at those if you've got additional questions about those particular types of topics. I also have a video on my Hyper AF system, so I invite you to go check that out as well. So anyway, thank you very much. My name is Doug. This is Astro AF, and I really appreciate you.